What are you eating? Chia seeds? Did you put chia seeds in some milk?
No.
It is. My God, you're a chia seeder.
I mean, I like chia seeds in yogurt. They like expand, and they're all slimy.
I dump them into my oatmeal sometimes. I went to the dentist. Well, last time I went to the dentist, the hygienist got all worried. She thought I had a giant cavity, and it turned out it was just a chia seed stuck between my teeth.
Man, she thought that was like a hole.
Well, I mean, I think upon initial glance, it didn't last for long. It wasn't like she was an idiot,
Right.
but I think glancing, yes, she thought it was some giant cavity, and then she pulled it out, and then I was embarrassed as I go. Because I did brush, but I clearly didn't floss.
I was just realizing the other day that we do not floss Pete's teeth.
Yeah, the baby teeth, though. Who cares?
Yeah,
Let them
it's
rot.
a little bit easier.
I know that you're supposed to set the good habit now. You get into the routine of flossing, but whatever. Those teeth are made to fall out.
But his teeth aren't like fuzzy and disgusting, because I would never let that happen. If he was walking around with like just gunk in his teeth, like I would never let him do that.
I've never come across people with fuzzy teeth. I'm not saying it doesn't exist. I know that there's people who have terrible oral hygiene and it can get gross. And I know that tongues can get really disgusting, but luckily I've never come across fuzz on teeth.
I don't think you've just not. Well, when I say fuzz, it mostly is. It's just like plaque buildup, that like extra stuff around their gums and like.
Well, I've seen that where it looks like cement.
Yeah, to me it looks like fuzz. Fuzzy teeth.
Where they have to chip it off. If you watch those videos, you have to go in there. They have to go with a chisel and a jackhammer, a dentist's handheld jackhammer.
Ugh, I could never be a dentist ever. You know, like, because I was, I thought about being. No, I didn't think. I'm saying I sort of thought about what if I were a dentist, and normally it'd be fine, be fine. But sorry, I don't know what's happening with my throat.
If I were Eric, I'd have something to say.
I'm glad that you don't. Fuck, I don't know what's happening.
If I were Eric and for whatever reason engaged with your sexual life on some strange scale.
Oh yeah. Okay, but I thought about it would be gross to be a dentist with the people that have like really gross bad mouths. And then I think I heard someone who was a dentist say like, oh, they love that because they're like, ooh, I get to like dig it all out. And like it's like the people who like to pop things on other people.
But it's the dentists themselves. It's usually the hygienicist.
Oh, you're right. Yeah. Hygienicist?
It's not. I know. It's not that. I just wanted to say it. I feel like
they're
the ones.
Phil Collins, if he was a dental hygienist.
I would love to have a dentist who had terrible teeth. Because I bet that the best dentists in the land. They're the best dentists around, but they have the worst teeth.
Well, that's what they say, right? The contractor has the worst house on the block.
Is that what they say? Why would that be?
Yeah, because they spend all their time working on other people's houses, and so they don't spend their time working on their own.
If I were a contractor, I'd have the best house, and I'd put extra effort in. I wouldn't cut corners and balloon budgets for no reason. I'd say mine's the sturdiest, and it was built with the most efficiency. You got fucked because I am a contractor.
Yeah, contractors can be trouble.
Well, the whole thing where the cost can balloon. Mm-hmm. I feel like you set a budget and that should be it. And if you go over, that's your fucking problem. Now, if you encounter issues along the way that, you didn't know existed, something was wrong with the house when they're fixed, then fine, you revisit it. But this whole thing, the same thing happens with contractors, here in New York.
Oh, like in business?
Well, like building new subway lines.
Oh, uh-huh.
They extended one of the trains 3 stations and it cost some ungodly amount. And throughout the whole time, it just balloons in cost. It's like, well, it's going to cost more now. It's going to cost more. I would say, fuck you. We set a budget. It's your problem. Now, I guess on the flip side, they abandon it. And then what are you going to do? But it's one of the reasons that subways in New York don't get expanded or new lines aren't built, because it just costs so much fucking money. Where in Shanghai, if you look at the subway system they built, which is pretty extensive, I think they did it in a decade. Now, were the labor practices fair? Were people treated well? Probably not. But I think there's a middle ground. I think there's a middle ground where people get paid well.
Yeah.
And you can also be efficient and you hold the contractors responsible. But when it comes to especially government contracts, people just walk all over like, yeah, whatever. We're going to take your money. Fuck you.
I really wonder if, and I don't mean to be so like anti-man misandrist, but I just wonder if women were in charge, if things like this wouldn't improve.
No.
Only because when you have a bunch of men in charge, for some reason men seems to gravitate towards continuing power. And if they lose that power, then that's not what they want. And so they'll do things to keep it, like say yes to budgets and ballooning and keeping money and, you know, like skimming off the top and stuff like that. But then for women, when women are in charge, it's still like you want to keep your power, but the practices end up being for a communal good as opposed to just the individual good.
I don't buy it. I think at first, yes.
Mm-hmm.
If all the dudes who ran these companies, in charge of big construction projects, whatever, were replaced with women, I think at first, yes, women would say, look, I'll show you how to do this. I'm going to do a good job. But once they were established and they saw the opportunity for a money grab and to rip off a government, they'd say, yeah, I'm doing it. I'm taking it. Because at the end of the day, I hear what you're saying, but at the end of the day, when they see that money, those dollar signs are sparkling in their eyes. Of course, they're going to take advantage of it.
Yeah, I'm not saying that women wouldn't take advantage of something. It just seems like they may take advantage of something like that, but it would still be better overall for a community and therefore a society. You know what I mean? Like it wouldn't be all about the money. It would be, I want to keep making this money and I want to keep this money and I'm going to take it, but I'm also going to continue to like do things that I'm trying to do for everyone.
On a small scale, possibly. But I think,
everything on a small scale is great.
I think men on a small scale, if they were just in charge of their tribe, would take that responsibility. But as soon as things become faceless or, fuck governments, though. I don't care about people necessarily ripping off governments. At the end of the day, it is the taxpayers' money. And if governments mismanage that money, they will raise your taxes and get more. But when taxes are already set, maybe I should get more offended by this. I don't for whatever reason. But, if the tax rate, let's just say, is set at 5% and it's always been at 5% and it's not going up. And they're like, hey, they were going to build that bridge. And that bridge went way over budget, and that's your money. I was like, yeah, you're right, but that money was already spent, and they didn't raise my taxes, and I didn't spend more. So, what do I care?
That makes sense.
It's a wrong approach to take.
I know it is, but it also feels like you got to pick your battles. You can't. What are you going to do at that point? You're right, because it is already spent. Are you going to go in and say like? You can't go in and stop anybody from doing anything at this point. So I guess go ahead.
It is the wrong. I sit here and I think about it. It's the wrong approach, and that's probably what they want. They probably want people like me. It's well, whatever. That's too big.
Everybody. That's most people. I think
it's too big. It's too powerful. You're already doing what you're going to do, and what the hell am I going to do about it? But you really should get pissed off. The MTA that runs, the subway here in New York. They're about to implement congestion pricing into Manhattan. So if you drive into Manhattan below 60th Street, you have to pay a $15 toll.
How do they do that? They put sensors up?
There's going to be on every street that leads into this district. There'll be cameras and sensors and reading license plates. And
damn,
they're being real bitches about it because
why are they doing that?
Well, one, the traffic there does suck. Like.
New York, that's what happens in New York traffic.
Well, you have mass transit. I have a car. I don't drive it into Manhattan. My car is not to get around New York. It's for when I want to leave New York, or, if I go farther out into Queens or something, I'll take the car. Some people do need to drive in. Some people aren't near mass transit, even the commuter railroads like the Long Island Railroad or Metro North Jersey Transit. But they're doing so by law, $1 billion a year has to go to the MTA to fund it for its projects. That's what they're $1 billion a year. So they're implementing this. They have to find the right balance though, because they claim, oh, well, we want to lessen traffic and make the air quality better. But if the toll's too high, then nobody's going to drive. And we do want to collect a lot of money. So we have to find a sweet spot for the toll. The MTA, some report fucking came out a few years ago where they paid over $1 billion in overtime. Whoa. And as a person who likes mass transit, who thinks that cities in the United States don't have enough of it and it is beneficial, there should be more of a focus and emphasis on it. I still think this is bullshit, though. It's like, why don't you manage your own fucking people? Why don't you get your overtime under control? Then you'd have the money. And what we were just talking about with the contracts, why don't you stop letting people walk all over you and take advantage of you and get better contractors in place before you start taking money from other people? Now, I agree that less traffic in Manhattan would be nice because, again, if you want to take a bus in Manhattan, it's tough because you're sitting in traffic. I think the buses are beneficial and should have clearer roads. If you drive an emergency vehicle, for God's sake, or if you get in a taxi and the taxi sits in traffic and then the meter clicks. It's like, I don't know why there are so many personal cars in Lower Manhattan, so I can get behind that. But the head of the MTA is being a real asshole about it. He's like, it's going to happen. It's already passed his law. So you can complain all you want. It's going to, instead of having some fucking empathy and taking ownership about his fucking shortcomings and the shittiness of the organization he runs, he just shoves it in everyone's face. And they refuse to do carve outs for like people like teachers or firefighters.
Oh my God. I didn't even think about that.
They won't do it. Like, no, they had to.
Firefighters? Are you serious?
A group had to fight.
Police?
A group had to fight to get an exemption for older sick people to be able to drive in and go to their medical.
Wow.
Without paying the toll. And people from New Jersey, and also, fuck New Jersey, who cares? But they already pay like $14 to come through, say, the Holland Tunnel. And then on top of that, they're going to have to pay another $15. It is a disgusting money grab under the guise of this is beneficial for all New Yorkers. And the air quality, where the air quality is going to get worse because people are going to avoid cutting through Manhattan. So they're going to go around and they're going to go into the Bronx where it's already shitty air quality and it's already poorer neighborhoods and communities.
Yeah, but who cares? Because that's the poorer neighborhoods. So
exactly.
Yeah.
Oh, no, we did our environmental study. We did it like a month. Oh, yeah. You did this thing in a month and you figured out that it wasn't going to cause any problems. This guy, though, man, I went up. This head of the MTA, what a piece of shit. This guy is the way.
A dick.
You could just approach it and say, "Look, I understand. Like they do it in London, and it works. London actually has great mass transit. I just think you can approach it with a little more compassion and understanding instead of digging in your heels, being the big tough guy. Yeah, it's already passed his law, so deal with it.
Well, also, it's clean up your side of the street first before you start. I don't know if that's the right phrasing for it, but what I mean is the person running the MTA should be looking at their own business practices and see where they have shortcomings, right? As far as where money is wasted or lost, or like you said, all the overtime, if they could schedule that properly or hire more people so that.
Well, they have people taking advantage of it. They have some guy that was proven that he scammed the system and made over $300,000 in overtime because he was cheating the system. So
that's what I mean. Like put practices in place that stop that from happening. But instead, he's just like, no, we're just going to take more money from you.
Yeah, deal with it. It's already law. I don't care if you don't like it. This is his whole approach. Man, there was a really good guy who ran the MTA for a bit. Andy, what was it? Byford, I think. He came out of London and ran their transit. Right. he was he was great. I loved him, but Cuomo, when he was governor, didn't like Andy getting all the attention for things. Seriously.
Really?
And because the MTA is technically run by the state, it's weird. It is run by the state until the times the state doesn't want to deal with things. So like, oh, that's the city's transit system. And then, but it's run by the state. And so Cuomo had a lot of say, and he like drove this guy out. The guy just went, I cannot deal with this fucking megalomaniac anymore. I got to get out of here. And he quit the job. It's a shame.
I haven't thought about this thought in a long time, but I don't understand why we, as in, I don't know, people in charge of things, don't look at what other people are doing and try and adapt that to what we need here. You know, like if Japan has a great, you know, train system, or like you said, was it Shanghai you said?
Yeah, and look, I'm sure if you dig into the Shanghai thing again, I just want to say I'm sure there's
but
plenty of atrocities that went into building that. Well, that's what I'm saying.
So like, don't, you know, avoid those, you know, take the good from all of these different things and see if they can fit to something here. But especially when you're talking about governmental, you know, departments and things, it's all bureaucracy, and you probably can't, like, even if someone was in charge that was trying to do good, they probably would run into so many roadblocks. They'd just be like, all right, fine. Lose your ability to handle it.
Well, there's so many egos involved. There's so many egos, so many people who need to be right, so many people who need to serve their own interests. And it's across the board. Like I deal with this at work, and I was thinking, even when it was like, what can we talk about today on the show? And I was just thinking of media in general and the state of media and how it's just crappy across the board. Like radio has been trashed since we started in it. It was constantly, there's no money. We can't spend on this. We can't do that. I'm sorry you can't get a raise. And as you've expressed many times on this show, you know, the fact that you're still part-time without benefits is fucking insane to me.
It's really stupid.
They take advantage of the fact that you don't work full-time hours, because a radio show isn't, full-time hours.
Right.
And they know that there are plenty of other people who don't work full-time hours and get paid full-time salaries and get all the benefits of it.
There are people that are working there. I'm sure they have gigantic salaries and are awful. There's a person.
Yeah. The radio, I can't look, this is going to be, you know, what happened? You shock yourself.
Yeah. Sorry. My little adapter thing was falling, and then I put it down and it went pow.
I guess we should let's start the show officially. Here's the theme.
Welcome to One Topic, where we stick to one topic. My name is Autumn Fisher.
My name is Greg Russ. As I was saying before the theme, I can't speak to radio across the board, but when I worked here in New York and they sold the station and they were flipping formats, at some point, somebody, I don't know why or how, they just left a bunch of paperwork sitting in the hall, and it was people's pay stubs. And I dug through it, and I'm probably shouldn't have, but it was sitting there out in the open. And what I saw on radio was no middle ground. There was no like, oh, this is middle class ground. And thinking of New York too, where middle class really is like $100,000 or 115. Even that's a stretch these days. But going back then, so you had people with salaries that were $300,000, $350,000, or you had people with $60,000, $65,000. In my case, for the promotions coordinator job, which I wasn't doing at the time anymore because it sucked, $29,000.
Wow.
I offset the shittiness of that job by also being on the air, which doubled my income. But most people didn't have the opportunity to do that. And they really put that job out there. You're the promotions coordinator for a station in New York City, and we're going to pay you $29,000 a year. And somebody would have taken that job.
The person who's making $300,000, what are they really doing?
Well, yeah, the one guy who did this, who was like in charge of a lot of the marketing stuff, a real dickhead who didn't really contribute anything beneficial. It's like, okay, yeah, this makes sense though. You get in with the right people, you get to the right spot. I'm not saying there aren't people who are good at their jobs and get to these positions and they're deserving of it and they earn it. But
Right.
there are a lot of people, and radio has always cried poverty and treats the fucking people who actually run the station like shit. Because, and maybe this is changing because radio isn't as appealing as it used to be. I'm surprised anyone young wants to get into it. I'm sure they all want to get into podcasting, which I can speak to because I posted a position for like a junior engineer, and the number of applicants is insane. So,
oh, really? What's the engineering for? A podcast?
Yeah, it's for a podcast.
Oh,
I didn't.
What would that entail?
Junior engineer?
Yeah.
It's shit work. They do tape assembly for the lead engineer. Like they just prep everything.
Oh, I see.
They get the scripts.
Uh-huh.
Like when I say scripts, like it's interview based. There's a lot of interviews. Then a producer goes through and shapes the story with that interview tape, and then the junior engineer gets a script and they assemble the tape and pretty much turn it over. That way, when the lead engineer goes in to mix and add music and sound effects and, adjust the audio, clean it up, that they can just jump into it and don't have to spend their time doing the bullshit work.
All right.
So,
but
it's
man,
a
you
job.
have a lot of applicants for that?
Well, it's
I
a
guess
job.
They're getting their foot in the door somehow.
Yeah, that was the approach. It's like,
right.
it's hard to get an opportunity, which is insane. But the way these podcast people act these days is that they're, creating great art. And there's a lot of gatekeeping that goes on. And if you have no experience, don't you dare, even apply. So I just wanted to give someone an opportunity. I talked to the lead engineer, and we're willing to, train people a bit up front. They need to understand Pro Tools to begin with. Like I had 2 prerequisites, like know Pro Tools and be organized, because you really
no Pro Tools. Oh no, sorry. No.
Yeah.
I was like, what? No.
Have an understanding of Pro Tools.
Yes.
Outside of that, it's like, look, there are parts of this process you don't know. We don't expect you to know it. I want to give somebody a break. And it's not even so we can pay them shittily. I'm going to pay them $350 a day, which I think is pretty good for a starting position. So, because a lot of the times, it's like, oh, we want someone green, so we can give you $29,000 a year.
Yeah.
And I it's like, no, this is an entry-level job. And the number of people that applied, I only put it on like a listserv. There's a New York City radio group, Google group, and that alone got like a few hundred applicants.
Wow.
If we had posted it on something more mainstream, I know there was another engineering position open at the company, and I was talking to the guy in charge of hiring that one. He said he got like over 2,500 applicants.
Wow.
Like media blows, as you know, in general. The landscape stinks right now. And traditional media like radio has always stunk, at least since we've been working in it. And then new media, which I work in now, there was a time like people were getting huge salaries because there was just an influx of venture capital. And now we're finally at the point here where there's a pullback, and it's like, okay, well, and things are a little tight. And, like Vice, in essence, just shut down. They filed bankruptcy, a year ago. And then
And wasn't it BuzzFeed that laid off a bunch of people, but during the Zoom meeting they were mad that people were downvoting it or whatever. Did you see that?
I didn't see that part. BuzzFeed did lay off a lot of people. Vice isn't going away, but they're shutting down their writing. It's like, well, we're just going to do TikTok videos now or something like that. It's like, wow, okay. So, the state of media stinks, and a lot of people have been laid off, and there's a lot of people looking for work. And even this listing, like people come in, like I have 15 years experience. I just got laid off. They'll tell me that. And I'm glad that people are being open, but it's like, you don't want this. If you're being honest with yourself outside of
but
being
it's what
scared,
it's like it's the career you've built. So what are you supposed to do? Just abandon that and go do something else?
Well, you don't want to assemble tape is what I'm saying.
Right.
If you're established in the industry and your skill level is above that, if you're being honest with yourself, You'd say, I'm scared. I was laid off. I need money.
Right.
I do think I'm above this job. And I don't think that's a bad thing. I think you do get to points in your career when you're above doing certain things. Now, you can be a dick about it if you have to help at some point. Like, no, I'm not doing that.
That's above my paycheck.
Yeah, but...
Oh, that's not the right way. You would say like...
that's below my...
That's below my... Sorry.
Yeah. But I can feel for these people, but I can't hire them for that, because the truth is, if they found the job, they ditch us in the middle of the season too.
Oh, right.
And this is only part-time. Like, that's the hardest thing. You're asking someone to commit for 5 months, and I can only guarantee 20 hours a week. Maybe people will work more, but it's tough. And if someone leaves in the middle of it, I can't necessarily blame them, but somebody who has a lot of experience is more likely to leave. And the best I can do is just lay everything out up front. Like, look, this is what it entails. This is what the job is. This is the commitment. Please be honest when you're applying. And then when you interview, you try to sift through and see if people are being honest, or if they're, trying to lie just to get something in the interim until they can get something else and ditch you.
That's got to be a hard position to be in for both of you, because the person who's interviewing does want the job because they need a job. And then you need someone to do the job. So you're both like, it's like starting off on the foot of both of you are optimistic, but you're right. If the person you're hiring gets something in the middle of your project, they're not going to not take it because they committed to this lower thing. They're going to take it.
And that's fair. You try to offset that. It is fair,
but it's still, I'm saying it's a tough position for both of you.
You try to offset that as much as you can. And I think by bringing in someone who's a bit green, it's more likely they'll stick with you too, because they're getting experience. Mm-hmm. And, whether or not it's justified, the company I work for, people want to work there. They like the work that the company does in terms of podcasting. Mm-hmm. And that holds some weight. And, maybe it leads the person not burning a bridge. I'm like, well, if I do this, I kind of fuck myself in the future if I ever want to work at this place again. But even that aside, if somebody decided to leave because they got an opportunity, a better one, a full-time one, whatever it is, I wouldn't fault them. I wouldn't hold it necessarily against them, because I try to be realistic about things. Mm-hmm. But all this stuff aside, I forget what I was saying about radio. I know there was the discrepancy in the pay and how they would always shit on people because someone else would take the job. I wonder if that's changing on the radio front, because I don't know if younger people are being lured to radio.
Yeah, I think it's probably more difficult now to get in on like the very bottom than it was before. Because now you got to go in and you have to you have to go through the company's website and you have to apply, or you have to already be in school and be going through that way. And like you said, the limited amount of people that actually want to get into it, because it's like, why would I be in radio?
It's like old person's media at this point.
Well, and even if they just want to be a DJ, that's still, gosh, think about all the lack of young people that are DJs. No one is young.
You're talking about radio, or
radio.
Dance DJs.
No, not like the ones and twos, the decks. I'm talking about in terrestrial radio. There's no young people like hosting music shows anymore. Everybody's old.
Because I don't think radio is appealing. I don't think if you're young and you want to get into radio, if you want to do what you would traditionally do in radio, hosting a show, you probably do think podcast first. You think I'm going to do a podcast. And if you're going to do music based,
because there's no connection to the radio anymore. There's no, that's what we had.
Well, they blew it. They ruined it.
They did.
They ruined it. And a lot of this, and this is what's happening, I see now in new media, again, which is just online media as opposed to like broadcast media or traditional media. In radio, there was always a struggle too between sales and on-air product. Salespeople have an agenda they want to push, which is just to sell advertisement. They want to close the deal. They want to get their commission, and they want to serve the client's needs. And the client thinks they think something like I go on the air and that'll be amazing. It'll be so awesome. And no, the truth is the audience will think it's boring and they'll see right through it and it's bad radio. But if the client can get that through the salespeople, of course, they're going to take it. If the salespeople can give it to them so they can close the deal and get their fucking commission, of course, they're going to do it. Now, it's not as extreme as that because how often are clients really getting on the air and radio? It happens some, but I guess any advertiser-based model too, you always had the sponsors and advertisers dictating a bit what was on the air by threatening to pull out if they didn't like what they heard. You know, that has always existed. But in the long run, if you put on good content, it may take more of an investment up front. It may not work right away. But in the long run, if you grow ratings, you make more money.
Yeah, but then you have, let's say you believe that, and so you put that stuff into place, and then the people above you are saying, what's happening? Nothing's growing. You're doing a bad job. You've got to, you know what I mean? And so then you just do whatever, but you don't put any investment into anything interesting or something that could grow into something interesting.
Well, that's what radio got away from, is putting interesting stuff on the air.
Yeah.
I'm not a big fan of music radio, but I don't know how long 99X's return in Atlanta, for example, is going to go well. Like right now it's doing well and there's an audience for it. It makes sense because it's an audience who's feeling nostalgic for something and they're getting that. And people who are on the air there, someone like Steve Craig, while music radio is not my cup of tea, like he's very good at it. There's quality content there, but I think that is few and far in between because most DJs were told to go on the air, keep it short, don't say much at all. For whatever reason, I don't know why this was the mindset of these radio companies. It's like, no, you're not important on the air. The music's the star. And sure, if a person listening to a music station doesn't like the music, who gives a shit about the DJ? Unless it's, like a talk show, a morning show on a station, a rock station, like the regular guys used to be, where there was no music. Maybe you'd listen if you hated the music, but radio didn't foster talent. Now I assume they have a hard time attracting new talent. I don't even know if they cared about attracting talent. Maybe they got exactly what they wanted, which is a bunch of people who would just do exactly as they said. And look how that's worked out. Sure, radio's still around, but I don't think it's meeting its potential by any means.
Well, it's definitely not trying to, well, maybe it's trying to in some ways, but I can't see it. Trying to merge with podcasting, or at least do what podcasting is doing. I don't know if they're trying that or thinking about that, but I think they should be. They should be moving toward providing that type of content that podcasts provide.
Well, if anything, at least providing content that has some effort and thought put into it and is good.
Yeah. And personality. And like, I feel like podcasting tends to be much more intimate, which I think radio used to be, because, and just like intimate in like a fun way, where it's like, I know this person, they live in the same town as me and they know where things are. They know how to pronounce names of roads. We're all talking about the same things because we all live here. Whereas now it's big swaths of the country that one person voice tracks for. So there's no connection to anybody. You can't call the radio station and talk to that person that's on the air right now because they're running the board. You can't do that anymore. So people have lost their connection with the media. And what we have to do, because now I feel like people are much more connected to podcasts because they're usually not the big guys, but smaller ones. Like they're just people online, who didn't used to have a podcast and still have a social media presence, and you can like message them and talk to them. And
outside of celebrities all having
that's
podcasts,
what I'm saying, not
now.
the big ones.
I know. It's just insane to me that now every celebrity has a podcast. They were too good for radio in general for the longest
They're
time.
smarter. They're smart. Don't go into radio.
Well, I'm just saying in general, like celebrities who are already established as an actor or a musician or something, like, I got to go down the radio and promote my fuck radio. Some of that was the lame ass hosts, that would push them down past they didn't want to go down and just ask provocative questions to see if they could piss them off. There was a lot of that crap, but I love it now that podcasting is now a thing that a lot of celebrities will do. I got to have my own show and I will talk openly about myself. But they're tapping into the intimacy that it lends.
Yeah.
You get to hear more than the talking points when some celebrity has their own show. Do I listen to any of those shows? Not really. I like Conan O'Brien, for example, but even his podcast, I don't know if there's part of me that resents it just because, audio was something I chose to do, and now it feels like it's been infiltrated by other people. Podcasting can make people a lot of money now. It is insane how much money can come out of it. I wonder how it feels, though, for someone like Conan, who did a TV show for so long.
I bet it feels great. It's probably a bajillion times less work.
Well, yes, it's that. And you're probably still making a lot of money.
Yeah.
And so there's part of me, it's probably just being a baby about it. I'm like, all these people have clogged up the system that.
Yeah, but even like if Brad Pitt or someone had a podcast, people would listen to it and it would probably make a bunch of money at first, but then people would die off from it, would fade away because it probably won't be very good.
Outside of that, though, like fostering new shows, people who aren't already established. And one of the issues is if you don't have a social media following, you're not going to be signed on to any network. Like you could build your own show. And at that point, I wonder if this show got really popular. If it did, but we didn't have social media, you could show numbers of like hundreds of thousands of downloads. But I'd showed my Instagram and it's like, it's not even you. No. You have 130 followers? Yeah. I wonder if they'd shut it down at that point and say, no, like what is most important?
I bet you instead they would just do that secret thing where they buy you the followers.
But you don't get engagement with that. You just have a number.
No, but then at least, because then let's say it's promoted by this company that's purchased us or whatever in this scenario, and they push our show. And then even more people listen to it, and then they find us on social media, and they see that we don't just have 103 followers, and then you get the engagement.
That would be a turnoff, you're saying, if you liked a show, and then you went to their social media, their TikTok, and they had 300 followers.
Well, my first thought would be, is this the right account? Or is this some made up account that's trying to pretend to be them? Or I would think, I'm in on the ground floor. Because I don't really put a lot of stock in that necessarily. That you have to have a bunch of followers or you're not worth it. It's like, no, not at all.
I agree with that. Fuck the followers. I think it's a poison to the industry overall.
Yeah.
That anyone who will get any kind of break has to have already established themselves online.
Yeah, I'm trying to get the break. The break hasn't happened yet. You can't expect the break to have happened and then provide the break.
You used to do that work, meaning these companies, if you had an agent or whatever, someone wanted to sign you, they used to be the ones to promote you. Not everyone wants to fucking go on every fucking day and make some goddamn lame ass content and post it. It's a lot of fucking work and you need to be relatively shameless about it. And there's a lot of people who probably have a lot of good ideas and a lot of ability and talent who don't want to do that part of it, who just get lost in it all because they're unwilling, maybe even incapable, because it is a difficult thing to do, of building an online following. It's the most asinine thing I can think of, and the laziest thing.
That's a different...
Lazy in terms of like the people who want to benefit, the ones who will push you, and agencies and stuff. It's lazy for them. Do your fucking work.
But to me, if you can make money off of TikTok or some social media platform, I guess go for it. And then all these things that actually don't matter. But in reality, the way that at least I consume social media is that I like the things I like, and it doesn't matter how many likes they may already have or who they are, who's posting it, whether they're verified or not. It doesn't matter. It's like, oh my God, that was so clever and funny, or they did such a great job at explaining history to me dressed as a leek,
But you're also talking about people who set out to make money by gaining social media following. I'm talking about someone who's maybe a writer, maybe that's not
what I'm saying. I'm saying just a regular person who has creative ideas and has a platform that is easy to do and make at their fingertips.
I guess I don't quite follow what you're saying.
I'm saying that those things hold the true value, at least as a consumer, that it doesn't matter how many followers you have or if you're verified or if you're making money or whatever. And then the people that are posting, not worrying about making money and not worrying about how many followers, like I think those are the people that deserve the most value, just maybe not monetarily.
Okay. I just think we're talking about two different things. Because I was still talking about people having to have that reach as a prerequisite,
right,
for being signed for, like, if you're a singer or you are a writer, if you're a podcast host, if you're a actor, you're not a content creator. You're not some person who goes on and needs to create. But if you don't have it, you're not being signed. It's all just a quick money grab. And I think similar to radio, as we were talking about podcasts and, how celebrities are easy to make money off of because they already are known, but are any of these companies finding newer talent and putting in the time and effort to grow that, to foster that? No, I don't think that's happening. At companies like new media companies, similar to sales and radio, where salespeople have an agenda to make money for the station. Obviously, it's a very important job. Without the money, there is no station, but they don't necessarily care about the content. And in certain economical clients, they get more power than they should have, and they can push that agenda, just closing a quick deal, not caring about the content on the air. And when I jump back to new media, I see that starting to happen, where they just want to set it up. So you're a factory churning out content and the thought's not going into it because the client just needs something done right now and I need to make my commission and I don't want my job to be harder. And how dare you tell me it'll take 5 weeks to make that thing? You need to make it in 2 weeks and you need to do it for a third of the cost. This is what's going to sustain all this in the long run. I think it is the downfall of so many of these media companies, is that they establish themselves and they become popular because they're providing something interesting, different, new, thoughtful, whatever adjective you want to throw in there. And people take to it like, wow, this is really great reporting. This is good writing. Then these websites get a following. At some point, they get so big, you start to introduce all the infrastructure with the sales teams and everything that comes along with it. And then it slowly degrades, because the operating costs get high. Obviously, economies fluctuate, especially with advertising. Whenever things get tight, the first thing companies pull is their advertising budget. Like, we're not spending money there right now. And because you have this giant company at this point, you have to pull back on cost and spending. And then it just becomes important to find as much money as you can. And that leads to crappy product. And
this is how everything is running. Every single thing.
Yes.
Everything starts out as kind of cool and interesting, and then gets popular, and then, I don't know, gets purchased usually by a bigger company or something, and then it all just goes to shit because it's all about how much money can we squeeze out. We can lower the quality of the product a little bit so we can make more money.
Until it gets lowered too much, and then it's junk.
It's like no longer a thing. Fuck them.
And then that's the end. God. There surely could be a level.
I'm telling you, we need to go back to like villages or some shit, because like on a micro scale, things are pretty like manageable, and it seems that things are no longer manageable.
Well, there's greed. I know it's more complicated than that, but let's say you created a small company that makes videos and people like the videos, and sure, you want to make that your job. And at first, you're not making too much money off of it. You're also not a business person. You don't know how to monetize it. So you bring in a few people to do that, and then they start to make some money. I feel as though there's a ground where you've grown, people are making good money, and you could stay right there. No, it's difficult to maintain. Yes, it's a hard thing to do. Even if you continue to make good content, people's tastes change. There are people who just don't like things and they become more popular and they'll turn on you and say, oh, this was better when it first launched. But if you actually put forth the effort and you just focused on whatever the videos in this instance that you're making that people enjoy, and you tried to keep that quality up, I have to assume on some level that is going to last for a decent amount of time. I guess the end always comes. At some point, people grow older and they don't like, again, for whatever reason, maybe you can't sustain it forever. And maybe that's the reason people push to get bigger and bigger so they can just make as much money. But
yeah.
I like to think, and I could be completely wrong, I like to think if I started something that became a bit popular and I could make decent money from it, I wouldn't feel a need to sell it to someone else, take my buyout and let everyone else flounder. If I stayed involved, I can't see a world where I'd say, yeah, it's okay. Let's start changing what we do because you tell me to do so. I can't see any of that. I don't know why, though, people don't find just a ground where enough is enough.
There's always the idea of making more money. And so they don't want to leave money on the table. But it's really like, it's like you can have one M&M now, and then you can have the rest of the bag in 10 minutes, or I can just give you the whole bag now. What is it? There's some like test that they did with kids where at a certain point, oh, it's like if you delay gratification, right? So in the beginning, I think businesses are more likely, or just like they're more set up to take the risk and to delay the gratification because they know, or they hope that it will be successful later. And then once it like if it does get successful, then there's no more delayed gratification. It is like, we've got to make more now. We've got to do this instead of just keeping it as it is and then making more money continuing to make money over time because you've kept the quality.
Is the M&M thing, it's
like if I give you one now, then you can have, that's what it is. If I give you one now and you wait 10 minutes, then you can have the whole bag after the 10 minutes. Or I can give you 10 and you can eat them right now.
Yeah, so the longer you wait, the more you'd actually get.
Right. There's some age, there's some test with kids where it's like at some age, they understand that process. Like they understand that they'll get more later. And then there's a certain age where they have no concept. And they're just like, no, give me 10. I want them now.
Having no concept is at least an excuse.
Right.
I think these days, people who know better still can't. Not even these days. It's just built into human nature. It's a thing that you have to battle and you can make the decision. But similar with, investing your money. Mm-hmm. You're supposed to, in a 401k or something, save for, not the, as you get older, I guess you're supposed to invest in things that are safer in case the market collapses. You don't lose all your retirement, but you're supposed to just let it sit and it's going to go up and down over the course of years, but don't even look at it. And at the end, it should be up and you will be fine. But then you've got people who get into it and think they're going to be day traders and they need the money now. I want the money in this moment. And sometimes that pans out. Sometimes you can make a lot of money, but I assume in the long run, if you keep acting like that, or even, sports betting, it's a very impulsive thing. If you win some money, sports betting, you should really just walk away. It's like, okay, good. That's won. It. I'm leaving. I'm done. It's like, no, I can do this again. I can repeat this and I want the money now. There's no long-term investment in sports betting,
but it's the same concept, where it's
it plays on,
you've done well. Now leave it here.
No.
Yeah, no.
I guess gambling in general.
Like, you are gambling. Yeah.
You just won $1,000. No, I want more now. It's the AMC thing was a few different factors, but the fact I could have walked away from AMC with $24,000, that wasn't good enough.
Yeah.
I thought somewhere that it was going to go up more and I could get more money.
Well, that's an example. Like you had the business, it was doing well, and you decided to get more money.
It's kind of the flip side, though. I thought, like, from what we're talking about, the opposite. Instead of the instant gratification, I thought I was going to get more, and I got.
Oh, you're right.
I got a little bit greedy. Yeah. But if I also bought into this idea that we were sticking it to,
right, you're going to disrupt the system.
And a few hedge funds did go under in the whole GameStop AMC thing, but the big ones never were going to. The market is rigged to an extent.
Yeah, it's like, sure, they were bailed out, right? The people that would have had to pay the short things.
Well, there were no bailouts with this one. There's shady stuff that goes on, but it was never. We were never going to reform anything. Nothing was going to come of this, and I did buy into that. If that part didn't exist, I probably would have cashed out. Yeah. It would have been a little more difficult than just cashing out, meaning I would have sat there and thought, will this go higher? Could this go higher? I probably would have taken most of it out and left some in just in case it went out. Mm-hmm. I was hoping that we were going to reform everything.
It's tough. I think if we focused more on being a more thoughtful human race, then when it comes to stuff like this, we would have more perspective. We would say, we could make more money for all the shareholders this year if we do X, Y, and Z that only harms our employees or our dedicated consumer base. So we're just going to do that. We could do that. No, I'm not going to, because I have some thoughtfulness, and I'm thinking about people and not just me and the people who will benefit.
It's not the way it goes, though. For the most part, people are thinking about themselves, and money drives the whole system, obviously. I can get idealistic about creative endeavors and what I think should go into those and what they should represent. Yeah. And I think plenty of people go into those with good intentions because they want to create things. There's plenty of people that go into it because they just want to make money off of it. But at the end of the day, most people in their lives, it's just about making money and setting themselves up. I got mine. I don't care if you get yours. Good luck. That's the end of it. Well, outside of the creative part, you're right in that if you think about people a bit more too, that could, influence your actions. Like, hey, I care about others, and looking out for them maybe is a noble thing to do.
Well, and if you love yourself and truly love yourself, not in the sort of an egotistical way, but if you truly love yourself,
I'm the best.
Yeah, I don't mean like that. Then you will love others. And so you'll think of others like you think of yourself. And so you wouldn't want to put others in that position. But I don't think people that make decisions like that can truly say that they love themselves, because you wouldn't do that to your fellow human.
Hey, I hate myself, but I still look out for other people.
Well,
explain that one.
Yeah.
I can't stand myself, but I also think I'm not deserving of anything. I don't deserve this money or this power. I don't even like power. I don't like it. Going back to the job thing, I hate being in the position of hiring someone. I hate that power dynamic.
It's tough. That's what I was thinking for you. I thought, man, that's got to be so difficult. I don't know if I could do it.
I don't like it, but you realize you can be respectful in it. And you don't need to really flaunt the power dynamic and dangle something in front of a person and say, I got this and you want it. What are you going to do for it?
Yeah.
You can approach it like a human. And really one of the hard things is seeing how difficult the job market is in media, and how many people want a job. It's like, man, I can only give one person a job. Right. And it also makes you realize on the flip side that when you're in that position on the other side, it's like, how the hell did I ever even get a job?
I know. How did I get so lucky to be here?
Well, I've never gotten a job by just applying coldly.
Yeah, I know. I think, oh, gosh, I might have gotten something like that I don't know. You're right. I'm not sure if I've ever gotten a job that's outside of, Little Caesars or something,
Well, yes.
Yeah.
Like when I worked at PacSun and then went to work at Best Buy, and they looked at my job history, and I only put Publix down because I got fired from PacSun, and I didn't know there was some system that actually told them that I worked elsewhere. Like,
Uh-huh.
oh, you've only worked at Publix, huh? I said, yeah, only Publix.
Whoops.
Only. Like, you sure about that? It's like, yeah, only Publix. Like, okay, we'll be in touch. Of course, I never heard from them.
I wouldn't have done that. See, that's a little bit of a power play. Because if they're like, oh, really? I know something you don't. Now I'm not going to give you your job. Because couldn't it be, so you've only worked at Publix? And you're like, yep, just Publix. And then I think if it were me, I'd be like, because I'm seeing some other jobs here. What are those? And you'd be like, well, actually, I had some trouble there, and and you don't have to be so honest and say like I stole from PacSun. But you could also just be like, it just wasn't the right fit, and I didn't like it, and I'm trying to do something else. Like, oh, okay, next time. And you're young, right? So I'd be like, put that on there, even though you don't like it. You got to like put that stuff on there because it could have been helpful.
17, at 17, You're right. The person could be a bit helpful. It's like, the show's up, right? And for whatever the reason,
right.
Even if you couldn't give the person a job because they lied or
exactly,
you didn't feel comfortable,
yeah,
you could say, hey, I can see this. I guess you could help the person.
But no, I have to, this kid.
I guess it's, even those days though, yes, I applied cold, but you still had to fill out the application and like turn it in person.
Yeah, do you remember people sitting at Target, like over in that weird little like cubby where they were filling out a job application?
Yeah, and then you turn it over, and at least there's some FaceTime with someone.
Yeah.
When you fill out an online application, it really is. It's just completely faceless. You don't get a feel for anyone. I think that's why your cover letter is probably more important than the resume, or in this instance, because I posted to like a Google group, people could email back, and it blows my mind the things some people write.
Oh yeah. You sent us something that somebody wrote.
Oh, somebody, I forget exactly the way they put it, but they were saying they were qualified for the job because, well, whatever. I don't want to talk about it.
Yeah, they listed some things that were not related to the job at all, right? Just like,
yeah, I was like, oh, that's what is a selling point these days. I just find it interesting that you have one opportunity to set yourself apart, like at first. It's like just to get the interview locked down, or at least garner some additional interest.
Maybe instead of attaching your resume, you should like attach a video of yourself. Just be like, hey. What's up? Like,
I think some people do that. I don't know if I even need the video. I think the resume,
you get at least a better idea of who this person is.
Is it wrong that when I see people go to like Ivy League schools, I don't want to interview them? Most people go, ooh, Harvard. Yes, let's get you in. It's like, you're going to have enough opportunity in your life. I'm not giving you this one.
Yeah, just based on that name of a school.
I haven't done that though. There are legal ramifications that are attached to these things. You have to, I guess,
you find out their age and you're like, ew, you're too old.
Those are real things. And, for sure, people throughout history didn't approach these things without a bias. They looked through resumes, they looked at applications, and I'm sure people got dismissed for things that technically were illegal all the time. And I really do approach it trying to be unbiased, but that's impossible because what I think makes a good employee is different than what another person thinks is a good employee. So that in itself is bias. So I'm looking for something, at least, even if it's not tied to their education or who they are as a person. I guess to an extent it is who they are as a person, because I want a certain personality type. So it's a lot of power. Like when you think about it like that, it's like, I can't escape it. There's no way to do this without some type of bias. And one person can have a part-time job for 5 months.
Yep. That's in your hands.
Well, look, if you gain experience and it helps you break into the industry, because so many places won't even consider you unless you've worked on a podcast, then, something comes out of it.
That's true. Especially when if you are green and you don't really have a lot on your resume. It's good.
Yeah, give someone a chance. We all had a chance. You just have to take that chance when you get it by wrecking the 96 Rock truck or whatever you did once.
Me?
Didn't you drive it into a telephone pole, knock off a mirror?
No, absolutely not.
Oh.
I turned the station off once.
What does that mean?
I was behind the board at 96 Rock and I was recording something else. And I turned the station off.
That's why you weren't allowed to be a board op. That's why you're a promotions person.
You had one job. Board. No one would teach me the board.
Then why were you running the board?
I wasn't. I was recording something and I was using that main studio.
Why were you recording in the main studio?
I don't know. I was recording Lucky. I don't remember why.
You should have used a production studio.
I know. Maybe they were all busy. Whatever.
I'm just thinking of when Ronald Reagan died. We can wrap it up with this. Okay. But talking about early on in this episode how radio doesn't invest. People are voice tracked. They're not there.
Mm-hmm.
And I was running the board one weekend, meaning just sitting there. There was nothing even to run that weekend. Sometimes, there'd be remotes. Someone would be at a car dealership and they'd have to record and you'd have to air that. This was one of those weekends where everything's automated. I'm just sitting there. It's like, fuck this. I'm going to go home because I live so close. I live so close to the station. And that was the day Ronald Reagan died. And I didn't know because, we don't get we didn't get alerts back then like we do now. These days would be popping up on the phone. I'm like, oh my God. I ended up getting a call from the program director, several calls because I wasn't paying attention to my phone. And he was calling the hotline, which for people who don't know is like the direct line to the studio that flashes in your face. So for sure to answer it. And once he finally got a hold of me, I had to play it off. It's like, I've been in a production studio, and I had to sprint back over so I could put on some news feed about Ronald Reagan dying. But even that, it's like it wasn't anyone on the air. So the person who had been voice tracking then just disappears from the air or doesn't reference it because they're not there to say anything about it.
Yeah.
What a shit model.
It really is.
The whole thing is. Anyway, okay.
All right.
We can wrap it up.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you for listening. I hope that you have a wonderful week. I love you. Bye.